Unleash the power of knowledge and connect with the heartbeat of the African diaspora. Download our African Diaspora News Channel app now on Google Play and Apple App Store. Stay informed with authentic and diverse perspectives, breaking news, and cultural insights. Immerse yourself in a community that celebrates unity, resilience, and progress. Experience the vibrancy of the diaspora at your fingertips. Don't miss out. Empower your perspective today. Search African Diaspora News Channel and join the conversation.
On very many occasions, Western journalists have always felt the need to go to interviews and try and humble world leaders from other parts of the world. They've done very many interviews with their leaders, and the tone that they use with their people is very respectful, a conversational tone. But anytime they're interviewing leaders from all over the world, then it becomes a very combative, aggressive, and abrasive tone. And they bring up issues in a very condescending and Western manner, in a way that sort of insinuates that we know and you don't know. And let me tell you, a BBC journalist who has so much experience, I respect, I've watched him for a really, really long time since I was young, starting my career on Hard Talk, had his moment of being humbled on air. Because certain topics like climate change are issues that the West have said they care about, yet they're the biggest polluters, and are very quick to assign blame to the people that are doing everything to keep the planet alive. And this is how it went.
Think of it in practical terms. That means, according to many experts, more than 2 billion tons of carbon emissions will come from your seabed, from those reserves, and be released into the atmosphere. I don't know if you, as a head of state, went to the COP in Dubai.
Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. Do you know that Guyana has a forest forever that is the size of England and Scotland combined? A forest that stores 19.5 gigatons of carbon? A forest that we have kept alive? A forest that we have kept alive?
Does that give you the right? Does that give you the right to release all of this carbon?
Does that give you the right to lecture us on climate change? I am going to lecture you on climate change.
Hello there, how are you doing? Welcome to another episode of our conversations. My name is Ondiro Oganga. I'm a business journalist by profession and a digital content creator. I love coming on here, having conversations with you guys about Black people, Africans, our empowerment, and how we can rise up and take a rightful place at the global stage. Connect with me on social media at Ondiro Oganga, or come over to my channel, New Dawn Africa channel, where I profile Africa through people, politics, culture, and the places that we visit. Today, I want to talk about, just in general, the tone that the West uses in addressing Africa and issues that actually matter to Africans. Let me start by saying currently in East Africa and just Africa in general, we are going through the heavy rainfall period. It's raining heavily across the continent. This is such a contrast because 3 weeks I was doing a story where I was talking about how nearly 80% of Zimbabwe received below average rainfall. And now the whole continent is flooding. Take Kenya, for example. Many parts of the country are flooded. People have lost their lives. There are landslides. Roads have been blocked. Livelihoods have been affected. And all this just speaks to climate change. The biggest emitters are the US, China, and all the other big economies in the West. But then who pays the price of climate change? Most of the time, African countries, most of the time, countries in the Caribbean. I remember during a certain COP, certain leaders from the Caribbean did their presentation from their country in the water just to show how much water levels had risen. There are countries that are on the brink of extinction because water levels are rising. But instead of addressing the people who are doing this, the media always chooses countries that are paying the price as the punching bag. I would say this in South Africa, in Africa rather, South Africa has been our punching bag because they use coal. And the world leaders never pass an opportunity to remind South Africa that coal is not great for the environment. And South Africa, the amount of coal that they use, trust you me, is not the reason why there is global warming. Are they contributing? By what percentage? And there's also something called climate justice, where you do not expect them to just not have power and not have energy so that you can continue polluting the environment while trying to build whatever industrialized economy you're trying to build. At what cost? And that lays the conversation for today's discussion. The leader of Guyana was being interviewed by the BBC. And this is a very interesting interview because if you've watched the fellow, you know he has a sharp tongue, he knows his stuff, and he's very passionate. You cannot come here and tell him anything because he will school you. My issue is the fact that this journalist did not do his due diligence, and that is not even a great assumption. The problem is overlooking the fact that these people have lived with their natural resources. They've taken care of their natural resources, but they also need to advance their own economy.
Let's take a big picture look at what's going on here. Over the next decade, 2 decades, it is expected that there will be $150 billion worth of oil and gas extracted off your coast. It's an extraordinary figure, but think of it in practical terms. That means, according to many experts, more than 2 billion tons of carbon emissions will come from your seabed, from those reserves, and be released into the atmosphere. I don't know if you, as a head of state, went to the COP in Dubai.
Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. Do you know that Guyana has a forest forever that is the size of England and Scotland combined? A forest that stores 19.5 gigatons of carbon, a forest that we have kept alive, a forest that we have kept alive.
Does that give you the right? Does that give you the right to release all of this carbon?
Does that give you the right to lecture us on climate change? I am going to lecture you on climate change because we have kept this forest alive that stores 19.5 gigatons of carbon that you enjoy, that the world enjoy, that you don't pay us for, that you don't value, that you don't see a value in, that the people of Guyana has kept alive. Guess what? We have the lowest deforestation rate in the world. And guess what? Even with our greatest exploration of the oil and gas resource we have now, we will still be net zero. Guyana will still be net zero. With all our exploration, we'll still be net zero.
Powerful words, Mr. President. But a couple.
I am not completed as yet. I am not finished as yet. I am just not finished as yet. Because this is the hypocrisy that exists in the world. The world in the last 50 years has lost 65% of all its biodiversity. We have kept our biodiversity. Are you valuing it? Are you ready to pay for it? When is the developed world going to pay for it? Or are you in the pockets? Are you in the pockets of those who have damaged the environment? Are you in the pockets, are you and your system in the pockets of those who destroyed the environment through the Industrial Revolution and now lecturing us? Are you in their pockets? Are you paid by them? Are you paid to keep their message?
While we're fighting for climate change, mitigation and adaptation, there also has to be justice. You cannot expect that people will not exploit their natural resources. Who is telling the US not to continue industrializing? Who's telling China that? So who gives these countries the right to police other people? And that leader put it really well, that whatever it is that they need to take care of, they've taken care of. And if we are to go by your analogy and say, okay, we're not going to exploit our natural resources, but for the comfort and cover that we give you through our forests, we expect you to pay. Antony Blinken has said very categorically previously that they're not going to pay. So where do you get the audacity to try and question and lecture other people? And this humbling needs to continue. I wanted to continue on global platforms where they're having conversations. I wanted to continue on different media houses that will call him for interviews so that mindset can change. I wanted to continue when he's on the same panel with some of these leaders so they can understand that nobody is at their mercy anymore. If you want a safer, better climate, do your part. But if you're not going to do your part, you then have lost the right to point a finger of blame at me when I'm trying to make the most of the resources that I have. In Kenya, there's this community called the Ogiek, and they live in the forest. And for a long time, the government has tried to kick them out because also the government is corrupt, yeah? They're trying to do very unscrupulous deals, or carbon credit, yara, yara, yara. These people have lived in that forest for years. They've taken care of that forest for years. They know better than you ever will 100 times and in 100 years. And these are conversations that need to be had. Come to the table if you're ready and willing to do your part. But if not, you don't have the right to lecture me. And if you try, I will humble you just the same way the leader of Guyana humbled that journalist.
Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. Do you know that Guyana has a forest forever that is the size of England and Scotland combined? A forest that stores 19.5 gigatons of carbon, a forest that we have kept alive, a forest that we have kept alive.
Does that give you the right? Does that give you the right to release all of this carbon?
Does that give you the right to lecture us on climate change? I am going to lecture you on climate change because we have kept this forest alive that stores 19.5 gigatons of carbon that you enjoy, that the world enjoy, that you don't pay us for, that you don't value, that you don't see a value in, that the people of Guyana has kept alive.
Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again next time. My name is Ondiro Oganga. Comment down below what you think, and goodbye from me.